Hello, hello. So, welcome. We're going to be talking about our first test review. So, when we talk about test reviews here, basically, our test reviews are just another version of the test. So, what you're going to see today is basically everything you're going to see on the test. And I am going to go through everything in this video. I'm just going to go through it in order. So if there's a particular question that you're struggling with, you can fast forward to that question. I'm going to go pretty quickly because this is all things you've already learned. I'm not teaching you anything new here. This is me just going through examples of how to solve each thing. Okay? Again, feel free to fast forward or rewind for whatever part you need, but this is everything you're going to see on the test. The test will just be like these same types of problems, just with different numbers, really. Like it's the same type of problems that you're going to be solving. Okay, so let's just start by talking about our steps for solving equations. Now, not every equation is going to involve this step, right? But basically, this is like a checklist of how you'd go about solving the equations. So the first thing you're going to do is distribute or ungroup things. So distribute, if you see a parentheses, that's distributing, right? You multiply the number in front with the terms inside the parentheses. When I say ungroup, that's like if it's groups are things that are being grouped together by either multiplication or division. So parenthesis with the number in front is being grouped by multiplication. You might also see like a group like this that is being grouped together by something dividing. Okay, so you'd have to undo this dividing first before you can start that equation. Okay, now that's different than this. This is just a single term, right, being divided. So we would get rid of the add subtract first, where like these are a bunch of terms being divided. So you'd get rid of that first. Okay, then after that you would combine like terms. And then you would get rid of the add subtract, whatever's adding or subtracting, and then you would get rid of anything multiplying or dividing last, okay? Unless it's being grouped, then you get rid of it first, right? And if that's confusing, just pay attention. I'm going to talk about it when I get to those problems. So let's start with number one. Number one is just a one-step equation, right? There's nothing distributing, there's no like terms. There is nothing adding or subtracting. The only thing that's happening is this variable is getting divided by 2. And our ultimate goal with all equations is to get the variable by itself. So we have to undo all the things around it. So to undo something dividing, you use the opposite operation, which is to multiply. So we would multiply each side by 2. Something being multiplied by 2 and divided by 2, those are opposite operations, so those cancel out, right? And then we have to multiply the other side to make sure it maintains equality. So 2 times negative 12 is negative 24. And now my variable's by itself. I'm all done, right? Okay, number 2. Now this one, we've got some steps here. So right off the bat, I see the parenthesis, right? So that tells me I need to distribute. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that negative 4 and I'm going to distribute it to the 2 terms in the parentheses. I'm going to shoot that negative 4 over the wall, right? So it would be negative 4 times 6. And again, when you multiply something by a negative, it just changes the signs of whatever you're multiplying it by. Since this is a positive, it's going to become negative, right? So it would be negative 24x. And then since this is a negative 8, it would be a negative times a negative, so that would be a positive 32. And then that equals negative 232. Now, there are no like terms. When we talk about like terms, we're talking about terms on the same side, right? There's no like terms there, so I don't combine anything. So now we get rid of the add or subtract. I have a plus 32 here, right? So to get rid of it, I have to do the opposite operation, which is to subtract, right? So I'd minus 32 from each side. That gives me negative 264. Again, if you're not sure, this is usually where probably at least half the mistakes happen on this test. Is students saying, oh, that's negative 200. If you are not sure, in fact, almost all your calculations, do yourself a favor, especially on a test. Double check it. And you'll get negative 264, right? Okay, then that's still equal to negative 24x. Now, another error that students make on this test is they don't understand what happens when you have a number right next to a variable like this. This is multiplying. So to undo a multiply, you have to divide by negative 24. Okay, negative 24, or negative 264 divided by negative 24 is positive 11. So x is equal to 11. Okay, now let's say I'm not 100% confident in my answer. Is there something we can do on the test to verify that it's correct? Absolutely. On this test, we can check every single answer and make sure they're correct. Okay? And I'm going to show you how right now. I'm just going to do it. Now, obviously, you don't have to do this, but if you want a good grade and you have extra time when you're done, this is the kind of things you should be doing, right? Especially if you're not confident on your answer. Okay, so what I'm going to do, since I know x is equal to 11, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to replace that 6 with, or that x with 11. So I'd have negative 4 times 6 times 11 minus 8. Okay, now since I know everything in the parentheses, I can actually do everything in the parentheses right here, right? That would be 66 minus 8, which would be 58. Okay? And that's going to be timesing by negative 4. And it's still equal to negative 232. Now, here's the trick. If this negative 4 times 58 is negative 232, then I did it correct. And voila! I did it correct. Yay! Okay. So when you get the same number on each side, then yeah, x has to equal 11, right? Because this is what we're looking for. We want it to be a true statement. We want it to actually be equal to the other side, right? That's the whole point. That's the whole point of an equation. One side of the equal sign has to equal the other side, right? So they have to be equal to the same number. So if you plug it back in and you get the same number, then yes, you did it right. You are 100% correct, okay? If you got like negative 232 equaled like 400 or something like that, like that's obviously wrong, right? So this wouldn't have been right and you would have had to gone back and fix it. But since we did get the same number, we are correct. And voila. Okay. I'm not going to do that every time. I just wanted to show you how to check your answers in case you didn't know. I'm sure you all do, but in case you all know that now. Okay, let's try another one. So we have 5 plus x equals 35. This is a one-step equation. This is a positive 5. So again, we use the opposite sign, and I know this is plus, but we don't look at this plus to figure out if we add or subtract. We look at the sign in front when it's add or subtract. Okay? So this can trick some students sometimes because they look at the sign behind it, but that sign goes with this number. It goes with the variable. Okay? Now, obviously, there's no sign in front, right? Because when it's positive, we don't need a sign if it's in front. Okay? So that means we have to subtract. We're looking for positive, negative, basically, when we're figuring out to add or subtract. And so we minus 5 to each side, and that gives me x equal to 30. And I'm done. That's my answer. Now, again, you can check that. 30 plus 5 equals 35. Great. All done. Okay. Let's look at another one. This one's a two-step. So nothing to distribute, no like terms. I got to get rid of the add, subtract first, right? So add, subtract, and we got the plus 3 there, right? So we got to do the opposite, which is minus 3. Gives me negative 9x is equal to 27. Then we would divide by negative 9, and x is going to equal negative 3. Okay? Not too bad, right? Let's look at this one. Okay, so this one looks like a doozy of a problem here. It's really not, but it looks like one, right? So we're just going to follow our steps like we have here, right? Let me zoom out a little bit so you can see the steps too, okay? So first thing we look for is anything distribute or ungroup. We do have a group right here, right? Those three terms on the top are being grouped by this negative 7 that is dividing. So we're going to get rid of that negative 7 first. It is dividing. So to get rid of it, we would have to multiply each side by negative 7. Multiply by negative 7. That cancels out. You're left with 2 plus 4g plus 15 equals positive 49. Because a negative times a negative is a positive. Okay? Next step is to look for like terms. Again, we look on each side of the equal sign, and we do have a couple of like terms, right? 2 and 15 do not have a variable. So we can combine those. Okay? We still have the 4g. He's just chilling. Okay? Didn't realize he got replaced by 5g, but you know. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, am I? Yeah, I am. I'm talking about cell phones because they got the 5G cellular service now, right? I think it's 5G. Anyway, 2 plus 15. And again, when you're combining like terms, you take the signs in front of them, and then you just kind of read those signs. Like this is a positive 2 and a plus 15. We ignore any signs of anything that we're not adding, but we need the sign in front of it to go with it. So 2 plus 15 is 17. So plus 17 equals 49. Okay. Two-step equation now, right? We get rid of the add, subtract next. So we want to get rid of this plus 17. So we would minus 17 to each side. That gives me 4g is equal to 42, 32. And then we get rid of the multiply, divide. That 4 is multiplying with the g, so I'd have to divide by 4. And g is going to equal 8. Okay, not too tough, right? Okay, let's try another one. So this one, some students get fooled. They think that to multiply by the 2 first, but it's not grouping anything, right? It's just got one term. So we're going to follow our steps. Okay, so we're going to get rid of there's nothing to distribute. I don't have any like terms, so I'm going to get rid of the add, subtract first. So I'm going to get rid of this plus 7. So plus 7, and that gives me 13m over 2 is equal to 52. Okay? Then, when I look at here, now when we think about the order of operations, it goes multiply, divide, right? So to undo those, I'm going to get rid of the divide first, and then the multiply. So I'm going to get rid of this 2 first. So it's dividing, so I'm going to multiply by 2. That gives me 13m is equal to 104. And then the last step is I would divide by 13. And I don't know what that is. 104 divided by 13 is 8 again. So m is equal to 8. Okay. All right. Let's try the next one. Ooh, this one's a tricky one. So let's look at this one. Okay. So I've got something to distribute. So again, I follow my steps, right? I'm going to distribute first. I'm going to distribute the 6 to the y over 2 and the 8. Okay. This really isn't any trickier than the problem I just did. But what does the 6 multiply here? When we are multiplying a fraction, I'm just going to do it up here. Let's say I have like 1 over 4 being multiplied by 3. Okay? When you multiply fractions, all you're doing is multiplying straight across. Okay? That's a 3 over 1 if it's a whole number, right? So basically what happens is the top multiplies with the top, and the bottom multiplies with the bottom. And that's all it is, right? So if I'm distributing the 6 to a fraction, I'm just distributing it to the top. Okay, so it would be 6y over 2 plus 6 times 8 is 48 equals negative 6. Okay, then it's like the exact same problem we just did, right? You get rid of the add, subtract, then the divide, then the multiply. So we would get rid of the add, subtract, so we're going to get rid of the 48, so minus 48 to each side. That gives me 6y over 2 is equal to negative 54, and then you would times by 2. Times by 2 gives you 6y is equal to negative 108. and then you would divide by 6. And negative 108 divided by 6 is negative 18. So y is equal to negative 18. Okay, not too tough. Let's try another one. So this one, little baby multi-step here. Nothing to distribute, but I do have like terms, so I got to combine like terms. So I've got a positive 5, and again, I always take the sign with it when I'm doing it, so it'll be like 5 minus 3. Okay, now I'm going to write this a couple of ways just so you guys can see what happens here. So 5 minus 3 is positive 2, right? So 2 plus 7k equals negative 12. Now, if I were to combine them after the 7k, I'm going to show you something that I usually see. So 5 plus 7k minus 3. This is wrong, by the way. Not that you can't combine behind the 7k, but I'm going to show you what it should be. So if I combine behind the 7k, here's what I usually see. 7k minus 2. So why is it a positive here and a minus 2 here? Because they just took the sign that was already there. But 5 minus 3 is a positive 2, right? So what it should be is a plus 2 after the 7k. Okay? So again, it doesn't matter which side of 7k you put it, as long as the sign is correct. So I have a positive 2 over here, I have a positive 2 over here. Pay attention to the sign. That's where most of your errors are probably going to happen on this test. Okay? So coming back over here, next I would get rid of the add subtract. So I got to get rid of the plus 2. I'm going to minus 2 to each side. Gives me negative 14 equals 7k. Then I got to get rid of the multiply 7. So I'd have to divide by 7. And I'd get negative 2 is equal to k. Okay? And again, I know I'm moving kind of fast here, so again, feel free to pause and rewind or whatever you need to. I'm basically going through examples of every single problem on the test, and I don't want to spend an hour on it. So, and I doubt you want me to either. Okay, let's look at number 9. So number 9, kind of like the last one, I've got some like terms, right? I've got two numbers with n's. So I'm going to combine those. Again, I take the signs with them. So 6 plus 2, right, would be 8. So 8n plus 8 is equal to 24. Then two-step equation, I get rid of the add subtract next. So plus 8 means I'd minus 8, which is 16 equals 8n. And then I get rid of the multiply by dividing. And n is going to equal 2. Okay. Let's try the next one. This one we have a group. It's a two-step equation, but it's being grouped by something dividing, right? So I'm going to ungroup that first. So I'm going to multiply by negative 2 to ungroup it. Multiply by negative 2. Cancels out. You're left with negative 18 is equal to r minus 6. Okay, and then you would add 6 to solve, which would be negative 12. Okay, let's look at, this is a good one. There's a very common mistake that happens on this one, and I'm going to show it to you first. So looking at this, a lot of students are like, well, those numbers are both in front, so you should combine them, right? Wrong. So if you distribute by 11 there, you did it wrong. Because what is our first step? Our first step is to distribute before we combine like terms, right? There's a reason for that. This is the main reason, these type of problems. This 4 is multiplying with these two terms. As such, it's not really a like term with this, right? Because it's multiplying with a couple other things. So we need to distribute it first before we look for like terms. So I'd have 247 is equal to 7. It's still chilling, right? 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. And then 4 times 7 is 28. Okay. All right. Now we combine like terms. So looking at it, we've got a couple like terms. We've got 7 and negative 12. So when we combine those, that's a positive 7 and a negative 12. So when you combine it, it would be like 7 minus 12, which is negative 5. And then I still have plus 28k. and it's still equal to 247. Now I get rid of the add subtract, so that's a -5 that's adding there, right? So again, I pay attention to the sign in front, not the sign behind it. This is the sign that goes with this number. So to cancel it out, I have to add 5. If I have -$5, I don't take away $5 more to cancel it out, right? I'd have to add $5 to it to cancel out the -$5. And add $5 gives you, or add 5, still talking about dollars, 252 is equal to 28K. And then you divide by 28. And K is equal to, not sure, that's why I have a calculator, 9. K is equal to 9. Voila. Okay. This is another kind of simple distribution problem. So I'm going to distribute first, distribute the 6. That would give me 48 minus 30p is equal to -72. Then I would get rid of the add subtract. It's a positive 48, right? We pay attention to the sign in front, so I have to subtract to get it to cancel out. So minus 48 and -72 minus 48 is -120. So -30p is equal to -120. And then -30 is multiplying, so I'd have to divide by -30 to each side. And I would get P is equal to positive 4. Okay, not too tough, right? Let's look at this one. So this one has a couple of things happening to our group. It doesn't matter the order in which you ungroup these. You could distribute first. You could multiply. I usually kind of do them at the same time, right? Because when you multiply here, it actually doesn't do anything here. So I'm going to distribute and multiply by 6 to each side, because I'm just a rebel like that. The 6's cancel out, and then 9 times 4 is 36. 9 times 8 is 72, right? I've lost my times tables. 72. So plus 72x, and then 6 times -66. Shouldn't be so -66. -396. Okay. That simplified pretty quick, right? Now this is a two-step equation. So I'm going to get rid of the add subtract to positive 36. So I have minus 36. And minus 36 is -432. So 72x is equal to -432. And then you would divide by 72. Because it's multiplying, so you got to divide. So divide by a positive 72, and you're going to get x is equal to a -6. Okay. And then the last one, which ironically will probably be one of the most missed kind of questions on the test, but this is like the easiest question on the test. We've got some like terms here, right? So we're going to combine them. 4 minus 7 is -3. So we have -3x is equal to 0. And here's what I usually get. And this is completely wrong. I usually get x equals -3. Right? -3 times some number is equal to 0. So -3 times -3 is 9, right? It's not equal to 0. So that doesn't work. If I plug it back in, that doesn't work, right? Well, what do? Well, we still follow our steps. -3 is multiplying, right? So to undo it, I would divide by -3. Well, I have 0 here, right? What happens when I divide 0 by -3? If I have nothing, and I divide nothing -3 times, guess what? I'm still going to have nothing. X has to equal 0, right? For -3 times 0 is, in fact, 0. So 0 is our answer. Okay? Not too tough. Okay. Now, these are our level 4 questions. Jenny was completing her homework. She was rushing, though, and made a few mistakes. Find her mistakes and write them out. Describe them. I'm going to circle that right there, because that's the key thing. That's why this is a level 4. Hopefully you should be able to solve these because you've just had problems just like this, right? That's not what we're checking here. We're checking to see if you can look at somebody else's work and figure out their mistakes. Because what happens a lot of times when we look at somebody else's work is we get lost. And I can tell you from experience as a math teacher, it happens to me all the time. We get lost in their mistakes, right? So writing them out and describing the mistake, that's what we're mainly looking for here. Obviously, we're going to have you solve it and redo it as well. But the key part and why this is the level 4 is because we want you to describe it. If you don't describe it, it's wrong, guys. Like, you didn't read the directions. Okay. Let's look at her first mistake. Now, there are two things you can do here that can help you not get it wrong or not get lost. My suggestion is if you're struggling figuring out the mistake, would be to just cover up the work and just solve it yourself. Okay? Solve it yourself and then compare what you did with what she did. Because usually it'll be like, oh, well, she did that wrong, right? But looking at this, and again, we can look at our steps, right? If we just look at our steps, it's pretty clear. If you would distribute first, then combine like terms, then get rid of the add, subtract, then get rid of the multiply, divide, right? So looking at her, what's the very first thing she did? Well, she tried getting rid of this -3 that's dividing by adding. So first of all, she did it out of order and she added instead of multiplied, right? So a couple mistakes there. So then she minus 18 and then divided by 4, like that's fine, right? But added 3, so her mistake was she added -3 first. Instead of the 18. She also wouldn't add. She would multiply. Okay, that's my explanation, right? That's kind of what we expect you guys to write. Now, I know that kind of takes up some room, but we still need to show our work and solve it correctly, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to write it real quick here. So 18 plus 4x over -3 equals 2. And then we would minus 18 first, which would give me 4x over -3 equals -16. Then I would times by -3 to each side. Gives me 4x is equal to 16 times 3 is 48. And then I would divide by 4, which would give me x is equal to 12. Okay, so there's the work, there's the explanation. Okay, let's look at the next one. And again, these mistakes are usually going to be from not following this list of steps. So looking at the next one, she combined like terms first in front of the parenthesis, right? But what should she have done first? She should have distributed, because that -5 is technically not a like term with 9, because 9 is multiplying with these two numbers. So she combined like terms first, instead of distributing the 9. Okay, there's our explanation. Now let's solve it. So -140 equals -5 plus 9 times x plus 4, or not x plus 4, x minus 4. That's another mistake that's going to happen, is just writing down the problem wrong. So watch out for that. Okay. Then you would distribute first, which gives you -140 is equal to negative 5 plus 9x minus 36. Now we combine like terms, right? That's our next step after we distribute, is combine like terms. So I've got negative 5 and negative 36. So again, when we combine them, we take the signs in front and just combine them. So I'd have 9x, and then negative 5 minus 36 is negative 41 equals negative 140. Then I would add 41, get rid of the add, subtract, right? Which would give me negative 99 is equal to 9x. And then I would divide by 9. And x is going to equal negative 11. Yay! Okay, so if you have any questions or concerns or any problems you're stuck with, ask your teachers. We're here to help. We want to help. You just got to ask us, and we will help you so you guys can get good scores and do great, and I will see you out there. Sorry for the long video. Again, pause or rewind as needed.